2. My name is Abraham Simmons. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Northern District of California U.S. Attorney's Office. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for dealing with the federal building under these extreme circumstances. We know that dealing with the coronavirus has not been the easiest thing every day. We tried to right-size this particular press conference. Not too many people. I did want to say that we know that it is being live-streamed on at least one outlet, the Mercury News, and probably more than that, now that I see the number of cameras here. Thank you very much for your cooperation as we try to do what is responsible for public health reasons. Shortly, you will be seeing Dave Anderson, who is the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of California. Also speaking today will be the Chief of Police for San Francisco Police Department, William Scott, and the Special Agent in charge of the Homeland Security Investigations, Tatum King. Those names you should not have any problem spelling, but just in case, they will be on, their names will be spelled on a press release that we will be releasing at the close of the press conference at the back table where you signed in. So you shouldn't have any problem with that. However, there are going to be 4 more people standing on the left side of the podium. My left, your right. Those will be Scott Lau, L-A-U, Robert Trujillo, T-R-U-J-I-L-L-O, Alejandro Cortez, A-L-E-J-A-N-D-R-O, that's A-L-E-J-A-N-D-R-O, Cortez with an S, C-O-R-T-E-S, and Jeff Camilosa, Jeff, C-A-M-I-L-O-S-A. Those are the folks who will be up here in case you want to get those spellings correct. They will not be on the documents that we have in the back. Just by way of agenda, Dave Anderson will give a talk. He's going to announce a significant new case. Then there will be comments by both Chief Scott and Special Agent in charge King. And then after that, there will be an update on the FIT, the Federal Initiative for the Tenderloin. Some of you might have seen Federal Initiative in the Tenderloin. It should be for the Tenderloin. And anything else I should announce? Also, the case that will be announced today, there will be copies of court documents that will be also on the table, the sign-in table. And one more thing, there's going to be a link that is put up in the Department of Justice for some video connected to the case. The link will be on the documents that we leave outside. So on the press release, whether or not you were thinking of actually getting a copy, if you do want to see the video, do pick up a copy of that. So without further ado, let me please, I can do that before, let's see if that works. Okay, does that work any better? Very good. All right, without further ado, the speakers today will be mine, but David Anderson, the Northern District of California U.S. Attorney.
Thank you, Abraham. So I want to thank you all for joining us here this morning. I also want to thank those outlets who've agreed to live stream this morning, and the willingness to live stream, in particular the Mercury News notification to us in advance. They would be live streaming on their YouTube channel. Very helpful for us in allowing some members of the press to observe the press conference remotely in keeping with decisions that they're making about their health and safety. So grateful for the unusual logistical arrangements that folks helped us make. Also grateful for those of you who came into the room this morning. Thank you for joining us. As Abraham mentioned, I'm Dave Anderson. I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Northern District of California. The Northern District of California consists of 15 counties in Northern California, stretching from Del Norte County at the far north end of the state down to Monterey County at the southern end of our district. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of California has responsibility for enforcing the federal laws here in the district, and we are assisted in that and supported in that and team in all of that work with law enforcement, federal, state, and local. I'm joined here today by Mr. Tatum King, the Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations, and Chief Bill Scott, the Chief of the San Francisco Police Department, both of whom will be providing remarks after my remarks this morning. Also joined by members of the gang unit for the San Francisco Police Department, whose good work has led to the charging announcement that I'm making here today, and I'm immensely grateful for their work and all that they have done. I'll also be providing an update on the federal initiative for the Tenderloin, as Abraham mentioned at the conclusion of my remarks. Today we're announcing charges against 17 defendants. The first named defendant is Rogelio Aleman, age 26. His 16 co-defendants range in age from 19 to 30. The grand jury has returned a federal grand jury has returned a 14-count indictment against these 17 defendants. The indictment includes charges including racketeering conspiracy, assault with a dangerous weapon in aid of racketeering, attempted murder in aid of racketeering, discharge of a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence. These counts carry statutory maximum penalties ranging from 10 years to life imprisonment. I want to emphasize at the outset that the indictment consists of allegations, not proof. All of the defendants are presumed to be innocent. They enjoy that presumption of innocence, as do we all, unless or until the charges are proved beyond any reasonable doubt. All 17 defendants are in federal custody as of yesterday, and their next hearing date is this morning at 11:30 a.m. In front of Judge Corley on the 15th floor of this building. Abraham mentioned that we have court documents available. I want to just expand on that remark for a moment. There are 2 documents and then video as well. The 2 documents consist of the indictment and then also a detailed detention motion. And for any of the remarks that I'm making here today, just please know that further information is available in those now public documents, the indictment and the detention motion. In addition, we're releasing today video, which also describes the conduct as you hear. Under federal law, racketeering consists of the perpetuation of an ongoing criminal organization whose members function as a unit toward the achievement of a common illegal purpose. It's a violation of federal law to enter into a racketeering conspiracy. It's a violation of federal law to commit acts of violence to further the racketeering conspiracy. The defendants are alleged to be members of a transnational criminal organization known as La Mara Salvatrucha, or MS-13. The defendants are alleged to belong to the 20th Street clique of MS-13, and it's important to note, and I will note, that the defendants claim, as part of their territory, a part of our city, the city of San Francisco. The part of the territory that they claim is indicated here on this map by the blue highlighting. I just want to pause on that for a moment. The defendants claim part of our city as their territory. Within and then also outside of that territory, the defendants engaged in drug trafficking, robbery, extortion, and various acts of violence that are described in the indictment and in the detention motion. The defendants used guns, knives, other weapons. Violence is at the core of the organization. Violence is used to establish and maintain membership in MS-13. Violence is used to enhance the status within MS-13. Violence is used by MS-13 to fund their operations, to make money. Violence is used to protect the unlawful activity. Violence is used to prevent or to obstruct cooperation with law enforcement. The indictment describes 10 specific incidents of gang activity, and these incidents are further described in the detention motion. The locations of these 10 incidents are indicated on the map over here. X marks the spots. I'm going to briefly outline just 3 of those incidents. All 10 are described in the court papers that are public as of today. First of the incidents that I'm going to describe to you is an incident that occurred at 21st and Hampshire. The defendants charged with this conduct are Dominguez, Melendez, and Tepeda. This incident involves an attempted murder and a high-speed chase. 8 shots were fired from 2 guns on the streets of San Francisco. The victim of this attempted murder suffered 5 entry and exit wounds and a fractured tibia. Second incident, 24th Street and Potrero. The defendants charged with this incident, Amaya and Espinal. The victim was seated at a bus stop waiting for the bus when he then suffered a vicious gang attack. The result of the attack was 15 stab wounds. The victim lost 2 liters of blood. Third incident, this one occurred at Dolores Park, one of the most treasured and iconic public spaces within the city of San Francisco. Defendants Melendez, Alleman, and Campos are charged with this conduct. A brutal beating and stabbing. The victim suffered a head injury and stab wounds to the back, throat, and neck. There's one other incident I'm going to mention before the end of the press conference. That's an incident that occurred in the Tenderloin. I'll come back and speak about that in a minute when I give you an update on the federal initiative for the Tenderloin. Before I turn the podium over to Mr. King and Chief Scott, let me just summarize a few of my remarks here this morning. San Francisco is suffering from gang violence and gang claims on our public spaces. Our parks and playgrounds and other public spaces do not belong to transnational criminal organizations. Our public spaces belong to all of us. Along with HSI and SFPD, we will oppose gang activity in the Northern District of California and in San Francisco with professional law enforcement and vigorous prosecutions. San Francisco is safer when we all work together. And I am deeply indebted to those who've joined me up here today, to Chief Scott, to Mr. King, to HSI and SFPD for their work leading to this charging announcement in this case. Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tatum King, and I represent Homeland Security Investigations in the San Francisco, Northern California, and Central Valley region. We are here to recognize the substantial federal criminal investigative efforts made in collaboration by the men and women of Homeland Security Investigations with the San Francisco Police Department, led by Chief Bill Scott, and of course the U.S. Attorney's Office, led by Mr. Anderson. Specifically, we are here to announce the focused federal criminal enforcement operation into MS-13 that took place yesterday in several cities, including San Francisco, Daly City, Mountain View, Menlo Park, and South San Francisco. This long-term federal criminal investigation began in 2017 in accordance with our public safety mission. As a scourge on our society, MS-13 transnational criminal gang members prey upon the communities they live in, committing the most heinous, violent acts against their victims, who may be afraid to speak out and request assistance from law enforcement. It is one of our primary goals to support these victims and work with non-governmental organizations and CBOs to provide them to support and, if relevant, immigration relief, which includes continued presence and T and U visas that they may be entitled to receive. In addition, we are driven to hold the transnational gang members accountable for their dangerous actions so they no longer terrorize our communities. I'm proud of our agents' exhaustive investigative work in collaboration with the San Francisco Police Department and the U.S. Attorney's Office in bringing these subjects to justice. We also appreciate the law enforcement assistance with yesterday's successful criminal arrest provided by the South San Francisco Police Department, the Mountain View Police Department, the San Mateo County Gang Intelligence Unit, and the United States Marshal Service. Partnerships that enable the successful investigation are key for law enforcement agencies to be effective and protect our communities, as resources are finite and criminal organizations like MS-13 have no qualms about exploiting information gaps that may exist among government institutions as they operate freely with no consideration for the location of the people that they terrorize and exploit. I have a couple other points of interest. First, for yesterday's results, as U.S. Attorney Anderson mentioned, 6 federal criminal arrests executed, but there were 11 subjects also that were arrested that were already in custody. One of those was already in federal custody, 7 were in custody of the San Francisco County Jail, and 3 were in custody in the San Mateo County Jail. We also seized 2 handguns with ammunition, along with a machete and other evidence. So I've got photos, obviously, of these. And those will be available afterwards too, so maybe.
Just
Okay.
thank you.
And with regard to the U.S. Attorney's federal initiative for the Tenderloin, as Mr. Anderson mentioned, this investigation and the men and women of HSI fully support that initiative, along with our other federal partners, as well as San Francisco PD. The MS-13 members that were arrested yesterday also extorted money from individuals, including street drug dealers in the Tenderloin district, bringing violence to the people, obviously, that use these government institutions that support the region. The numerous victims referenced in the indictment suffered violent crimes, including attempted murder, violent robberies, and assaults. These victims are not just statistics, but are real people that reside in our communities. We respect the victims, the privacy of the victims, and the need for discretion when discussing them. I would urge you to read the indictment and other documents the U.S. Attorney's Office has posted in their entirety for more information. It's disturbing. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for streaming. And I'd like to introduce my partner, Chief Bill Scott of the San Francisco Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. King. Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank U.S. Attorney David Anderson for hosting this press conference and for inviting the San Francisco Police Department and the San Francisco Police Department members, especially these investigators to my left, who worked on this investigation. I want to call out and personally thank in front of all of you the investigative team that worked on this investigation. Sergeant Rob Trujillo, Sergeant Scott Lau, Sergeant Jeff Camaloso, and Sergeant Al Cortez. We would not be here if it weren't for the work and the dedication of these fine investigators, and these cases are not easy. As you noted, as the U.S. Attorney noted, we're here today to announce the indictments of numerous members and associates of the MS-13 20th Street clique for their involvement in crimes perpetrated in and around the Mission District in the city of San Francisco. In 2017, members of the SFPD Gang Task Force began investigating violent crimes involving suspects who were believed to be members of the transnational criminal organization known as MS-13. Over many months, San Francisco Police Department officers conducted investigations and identified numerous subjects that were determined to be associated with the 20th Street MS clique. One of these investigations determined that the 20th Street members were responsible for the March 17, 2017 homicide of Mr. Jorge Martinez on the 3300 block of 19th Street. In this case, the suspects confronted Mr. Martinez and accused him of being a rival gang member. Jose Mejia Carrillo shot Martinez once and then shot him a second time as he lay on the ground. During this execution-style killing, Alex Cruz Cepeda served as a lookout for Mejia Carrillo. Both suspects were tried. Mejia Carrillo received a homicide conviction, and Mr. Cruz Cepeda was convicted on conspiracy involving a homicide in the San Francisco Superior Court. Eric Garcia Pineda and Jesus Perez Arujo have been arrested and are awaiting trial for the August 15, 2017 homicide of Abel Esquivel. In this case, defendants confronted and shot Mr. Esquivel while he was walking in the area of 26 and Van Ness Streets. Mr. Esquivel died the next day at San Francisco General Hospital. Our investigators have also determined that MS-13 20th Street Clique gang members were involved in 4 attempted homicides, numerous shootings, and violent aggravated assaults in San Francisco, as well as a number of other cities, including assaults and shootings in Daly City. As SFPD investigators were solving many of these cases and working with the San Francisco District Attorney's Office to prosecute the offenders of these violent crimes that were impacting our city, it became clear that the criminal activity of the 20th Street Clique of MS was part of a much larger criminal enterprise of the transnational gang MS-13. The SFPD Gang Task Force sought out the assistance of the United States Attorney's Office and our federal law enforcement partners, which have the information and resources to help us more effectively investigate this type of multinational criminal activity. Through the course of an extensive multi-year joint investigation with agents from the Homeland Security Investigations, also known as HSI, evidence was brought forward before a federal grand jury which returned the 17 indictments that Mr. Anderson spoke of. These indictments represent thousands of hours of detailed investigations on the part of these fine SFPD investigators standing to my left and of our fine HSI agents. Yesterday on March 12th, search warrants were served simultaneously in various locations in San Francisco, San Mateo, and Santa Clara counties. As was stated by Mr. King, 6 defendants were arrested. The other 11 defendants were already in custody on a number of other charges. Gangs function largely by the commission of violent acts to further their enterprises, to intimidate their victims and witnesses, and to recruit and initiate new members. Defendants in these federal indictments are accused of various crimes, including racketeering, the use of firearms and furtherance of a crime of violence, assault with a dangerous weapon in the aid of racketeering, and attempted murder in the aid of racketeering. These arrests should provide a sense of comfort and relief to the residents of the Mission District and to the residents of the city and county of San Francisco, where these defendants largely operated. These arrests also serve as a warning to those who endeavor to commit criminal crime or participate in criminal gangs. SFPD officers and investigators, as well as our federal partners, are committed to their work. We will diligently investigate crimes that present the best possible case to prosecutors in order to protect our city. We will continue to work with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners to ensure the safety of the residents of the city and county of San Francisco. And I want to acknowledge and thank the U.S. Attorney's Office and Mr. David Anderson and his team of investigators, and the Department of Homeland Security, led by Special Agent in Charge Tatum King, and his team of investigators for their continued support to the San Francisco Police Department and to the residents of the city and county of San Francisco. As Mr. Anderson said, and I can't say it any clearer or any better, the spirit of cooperation and teamwork demonstrated in this investigation directly contributes to a safer San Francisco, and we are all better off when we work together. Thank you.
the primary locus of the criminal conduct that's been described to you today is the Mission District of San Francisco, as indicated on the map and as signified by the remarks that you have just heard. But the Tenderloin also figures into the charges that have been brought today, and prompts me to provide to you an update on the federal initiative for the Tenderloin. I'll start with the incident charged in the indictment that has been unsealed today that occurred in the Tenderloin neighborhood. This involved defendant Rodriguez and the use of a shotgun that was fired at such a close range against the intended victim that the shotgun wad lodged in the chest of the victim. Bystanders were also struck. This was part of an effort to extort drug dealers in the Tenderloin neighborhood of San Francisco. The victim of this particular incident stayed in a coma for 9 days. And this kind of conduct I find to be emblematic of the lawlessness that is attracted into a neighborhood where we allow an open-air drug market to exist. And this is what the Tenderloin has been suffering here in the heart of our city. Last year, we announced the federal initiative for the Tenderloin. FIT, as we call it, reflects the investment of 15 federal law enforcement agencies, 15 AUSAs or prosecutors in my office, and also with the important support and cooperation of the SFPD. We've been working on FIT for a bit more than 6 months at this time, and it seems like an appropriate time for me to provide you with an update on the work that we've been doing to protect the Tenderloin neighborhood. We have charged more than 150 defendants as part of the federal initiative for the Tenderloin. We have recovered dozens of guns. The charged conduct in the Tenderloin includes drug trafficking, human trafficking, unlawful possession of firearms, escape, robbery, and child pornography. Other types of criminal conduct are also under investigation. I'll just mention one defendant in particular, a defendant by name of Atreya Frager. Atreya Frager was arrested 8 times for drug trafficking in and near the Tenderloin area on more than one occasion in close proximity to a school or playground. The drugs that he was distributing include methamphetamine, heroin, fentanyl, and hydrocodone. As a result of the federal initiative for the Tenderloin, Frager has now been convicted and sentenced in federal court. He is now serving a 6.5-year sentence. If any of the members of the press are interested in pursuing other case examples, please contact Abraham Simmons. He'll be happy to provide you with more detail about the case I just mentioned or others that are part of the more than 150 cases that we have brought in the Tenderloin as part of this initiative. My feeling is that the Tenderloin deserves the benefits of professional law enforcement. My feeling is that the Tenderloin is a wonderful neighborhood of young families, small children, and the elderly. It is a diverse neighborhood. It is a neighborhood that I feel deserves our help. The people who live in the Tenderloin, work in the Tenderloin, and visit the Tenderloin should not have to do so in fear. They should not have to run a gauntlet of crime here in San Francisco. What we're seeing is that the drug trafficking organizations are modifying their behavior in response to the federal initiative for the Tenderloin. They're moving street corners, they're modifying their hours. In general, what I would say is that the drug trafficking organizations are engaged in highly entrepreneurial behavior in response to this new law enforcement pressure. The drug trafficking gangs will not give up the Tenderloin easily. At the same time, neither will we. I'm happy to take your questions now on the Tenderloin initiative or on the indictment unsealed today and announced today. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, Chief Scott mentioned homicide. You mentioned attempted homicide in the charges, so how do we square that?
Thanks for the question and good point of clarification. The federal indictment that is announced today containing 14 federal counts does not include a homicide count. It does include the racketeering conspiracy, the attempted murder, also the other acts of violence, the use of guns, as I've described.
If I could ask, if you have a question, that you please say where you're coming from and your name and your outlet. That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks to the streaming, it could be a shorter press conference than usual. I welcome questions. Yeah, thank you.
My name is Julia Mark from Official Local. Of the 150, how many are from other countries and how many may be deported as a result of your actions?
So, another great question, and thank you for that question. We are criminal prosecutors. We are enforcing federal law regardless of race, ethnicity, national origin of the offenders. So that is not directly a fact that in any way affects our work. It is true that after the conclusion of the criminal process, some of these offenders will be subject to removal through the ICE process. That's a separate process that occurs administratively and not through our criminal process.
Can you say how many though? I mean, do you have a number?
I don't know how many.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say, in an effort to be helpful, that certainly many, but also equally certainly not all of the offenders are from outside of the United States. The more salient aspect of it, as I perceive it, is that many of these offenders are from outside the Tenderloin neighborhood. They have come and occupied the Tenderloin neighborhood from outside that neighborhood. And that's meaningful to me because I perceive there to be strong community support for the law enforcement effort that we're undertaking. And I recognize that law enforcement is really one part of what the Tenderloin needs, and it's the part that we feel we can provide. But others care for the Tenderloin as well, and I would note in particular my perception that Mayor Breed, Supervisor Haney also care very much for this neighborhood, and I'm grateful for their efforts, as I think the people of the Tenderloin are as well.
Jane Marr with the Associated Press. Of the 17 in the most recent action, could you estimate how many are foreign nationals as opposed to citizens?
Again, I don't have an estimate. Many, but not all, would be the way that I could accurately describe my knowledge. So there are certainly some folks who have U.S. citizenship, lawful status, and then those who have no lawful status, no right to be here at all.
I think we've got to get this on the new news, so we're
All right. Thank you all so much for coming today. Thank you.